It's got D on it.
D for
For
Derek.
Derek. You've done it again, Lawrence. You've brought us to a forest in the middle of autumn. Where on earth are we and why are we here?
So we are currently walking in Farley Moor. So we are just outside the Peak District National Park near Matlock. And we've got a pretty exciting site to look at. We're looking at a prehistoric standing stone. This is a site that's never been investigated before. And there are a few questions we need to ask. Is it Bronze Age? And more importantly, is it part of a larger monument?
So you've got some very clear aims there. How on earth are we going to do this?
Well, we've got a really discreet team in the form of yourself, Hilde and Naomi.
Yeah, my alarm did not go off.
And we are going to just target some really specific questions. We want to understand its composition, its structure, and its age.
So those are some really targeted questions. But what do we know about the site so far? Have we had any geophysics done, any previous work?
So the site itself's never really been investigated. We've had a geophysical survey done in the form of magnetometry and resistivity, but they didn't show us anything. But we've been really fortunate in this instance that the University of Sheffield have come along with their ground penetrating radar. So they're going to be doing a targeted survey around the stone to hopefully find some stone sockets or other associated features to this monument.
I mean, this is a team of 5 or 6 people. We turned up today in camper vans. We woke up to a lovely frosty morning. This feels like a proper expedition, doesn't it?
It's a proper expedition. Should we get on with it?
Yeah.
I've been so excited all week for this. It's a beautifully sunny morning and we've got this incredible standing stone. It's a little bit taller than I am. There are also a number of stones that we've identified around the area that we want to investigate, because is this a larger monument or is it an individual standing stone? We know there's a history of prehistoric stone circles on the gritstone moors, so is this another one to add to the list? But we want to get some dates, we want to understand its context, its composition. We've got the GPR team here from University of Sheffield who are going to do a quick survey around the main stone ahead of us excavating. We've got some other targets that we're going to look at. So the first one is with Hilde. Hi Hilde, you right?
Good, thank you.
Now we've got a lovely standing stone over there.
There is quite a large stone here as well, and there's some vegetation on top of it here which we need to clean off, and then this looks to be the other end. So it's kind of almost similar size to the main standing stone, I would say.
Okay, well obviously what brought us here is the standing stone itself. This is known as a single standing stone, but we have identified these other stones in the region, and we know that there's a rich history of stone circles in the gritstone moors. So what you're looking to do is try and identify if this is part of a larger monument.
Yeah, it would be good to try and find out somehow if this was maybe ever upstanding rather than the way it is now. It could just be geology sticking out,
Right.
So I want to find out if it is archaeological. But there is also, I noticed earlier, another stone right here.
Ah, yes. Yeah. Oh, it looks just like the soil, doesn't it? Good spot.
Yes, so we need to give that a clean up as well and see whether it's anything related or not.
If these aren't erratics and we are looking at a bigger stone circle, for example, with regards to at least this big stone we're looking at, it could be a recumbent stone that's fallen over. Do you think it would have been upright, or do you think we're looking at a slightly lower, more longer squat one, or is that what the excavations are going to show us?
I mean, I guess we won't know until we dig it, and even then, I wonder if it's going to be tricky to figure out if it was ever upstanding or not archaeologically.
So presumably if it was part of a larger monument, it is a standing stone, your trench will reveal some packing stones, maybe the original stone hole that it once sat in. So that's what we're kind of hoping for there. And if so, maybe some dating evidence?
Some dating evidence would be amazing. We think that this might be Bronze Age, is that right?
Yeah. Depending on what you find, we'll excavate this one, we'll clean that up, and we'll make a decision later today.
And then maybe Naomi can do some magic.
Naomi magic. Right, speaking of Naomi, she's standing by another feature, so I'm going to go and see her. See you in a bit. trickier thing about this site is the number of things we've got to get through to get to each other. We've got heather, we've got tree stumps, we've got erratic stones, we've got archaeologists, we've got Dudge as well. But Naomi.
Hello, Lawrence.
This is looking rather smart. What have we got here?
Well, not to put a too fine a point on it, Lawrence, we have some rather large stones.
We do have some.
We do. And what's kind of interesting is they're very near our beautiful main contender here. So I'm just having a look. Some of these feel a little bit,
that's on the surface,
a little bit
isn't
loose. I like this one, this heart-shaped one. It's too big for my collection. So I think the idea is really I'm just going to box this off, clean it, and see if it's real.
Okay, because I guess we've already identified that there's quite a few erratic stones around. So
Yeah.
we're trying to work out if this is archaeology or just things that have come in at a later phase.
So this one here, I mean, this is the biggest one, and this seems really quite solid.
Yeah.
But yeah, until we give it a clean back and go down a little bit, we're not going to know. So that's the first job, really.
Obviously, we're interested in a standing stone. There's also a question, is it part of a larger monument? But Hilde's stone is just over there. So if we were to assume it's a stone circle, you'd be outside the stone circle here. So if it is archaeology, it's potentially something different. And there's an assumption there that that's where the stone circle's going, but you might have it going somewhere different. So it's a really good place to investigate.
So even though I'm on the outside, that always happens somehow, I could get something unique.
Yeah,
even.
yeah, or it might completely change how we're looking at the site. So an important question nonetheless.
Yeah.
All right, I'll leave you to it.
Perfect.
Hilde and Naomi have found two areas of interest close to our main standing stone. They're investigating to see if the stone is just a single isolated feature or if it was once part of something bigger. And we've deliberately targeted features on opposing sides of the stone to hedge our bets in the hope of capturing different activities or orientations.
As great as these little stones are, and they might prove to be nothing, there's one thing that's drawn us here, and it's this absolute beauty. Derek, how you doing?
I'm good. You've shown me pictures of this before. I didn't expect it to be so big.
I know. I mean, it's as tall as you are. But this is what's brought us here. This is the third largest standing stone in the Gritstone Moors. And we want to understand it. It's supposedly Bronze Age, but what's its context?
You say supposedly Bronze Age, but do we have any dating evidence at all?
So we know very little about this site. It's been forested for 50 years plus. It's been recently cleared, and it is our opportunity to do some proper investigation. So we're going to stick a trench in front of here. We're going to capture those two small stones just in front of us, and hopefully what we're going to get is an understanding of its composition, of how it's been placed here. We'll find some of the packing stones, and what we might do is just some more focused excavations just at the base there to try and get a bit of date at the basal layers if we can.
Dating wise then, obviously we'd love some material culture, but that's going to be quite unlikely. So we're thinking of trying to find some carbon potentially and do a C14 date.
Even if we find artefacts, nice worked flint, it still gives us quite a broad time range. So nice lump of charcoal, that would be fantastic.
I guess dating this is obviously priority one, but what strikes me is this has been recently fouled. Even just doing a basic map of the stones and seeing if we can see any alignments, seeing if we can see any relations to the topography in the landscape would be really useful, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And what I'd like to do, if it's all right with you, is get you to do some recording, because we need to understand the context of the site. So I love a 3D model of the stone itself, get some details, see if there's any rock art, maybe some historic graffiti, but also go around, do a much larger landscape topographic survey with the drone and map in individual stones that we found. We know we've got Naomi's, we know we've got the two that Hilde's looking at, but are there other erratics or that could be part of a much larger monument?
Absolutely, I would love to do that, because while we're in this lovely woodland setting, these trees have served to protect this for many, many years. It would be lovely to see how this monument relates to its immediate environment, but also the wider landscape without the trees, the view shed of the landscape, see what we can see from here, see how it relates to the wider geography of the place.
So, in addition to Hilde and Naomi's targets, we also have plans to better understand our standing stone and its surrounding landscape. And this is really important because while we often suggest that it's Bronze Age, people have been known to erect stones in areas like moorlands as it's enclosed for agriculture or even as boundary markers. Whilst our site could be ancient, there's every possibility it's simply a solitary standing stone erected in the last 100 years or so. We know from historic maps that this stone was here before the forest was planted, but this doesn't mean that it's ancient.
Jess, you're already up and running and covering good ground.
I am.
So what kinds of things will you be looking for today?
We are looking for all kind of underground features that haven't been recorded previously. So it could be cut features like ditches, pits, solid elements like stones.
Fantastic, and I can see you've laid out a couple of grids over here, so you're going to get an area around the stones themselves. I mean, that seems like a good amount of ground to cover in the time you've got, so I better leave you to it, but I cannot wait to see your results.
We'll see.
Hopefully, we'll get some exciting results. While Andreas and his team focus on their survey, Hilde can get started digging right away as her trench is outside of the survey area. Fortunately for us, we've been joined by several volunteers to help us meet our objectives over the next 3 days.
So I've just been exposing this stone, which has turned out to be quite a bit larger than I thought. And then we've also exposed some stones, loose stones to the side of it. So I'm starting to wonder if they could be kind of packing stones from when this may have been upstanding. And I think it did used to be upstanding. Interestingly, a few possible tool marks are coming up on the stone. So I've got this one. I think this very long one is maybe kind of modern forestry related, something dragged across it. But I'm interested in these little ones. One here, and then a few across. So at the moment, none of us can agree about which direction it would have been standing up in. So I think it was maybe the narrow bit kind of slotted into the ground, standing up this way. I think Lawrence reckons it was standing up this direction, kind of a wide, low stone. And then we've got another stone being expertly cleaned back here. So before we do any kind of section, we're just getting it all uncovered, and then we're going to do some proper excavation afterwards.
With digging underway, the GPR survey has now been completed, and Andres gives me an update on his findings.
Andres, we've got some results. I know you've been working really hard in quite challenging conditions, so how are they looking?
Well, unfortunately, the results are not particularly promising. As you can see here, the first area is mainly roots and probably like some geological formations. As you can see, there's some reflections, but there's nothing particularly significant.
No large stone reflections or anything like that?
No, it's mainly like roots and changes in the soil.
Which we would expect in being an old forest.
Yeah. There's some faint lines going in this way. That could be tracks.
They could also, that area is ploughed, the sort of style of 1950s forestry. They would do heavy ploughing and plant the trees. So there's every possibility or probability that is the plough lines.
Is related with the plough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very likely. That's very likely.
What about the second area?
The second area, I thought had something else. There's a clear feature. It's a long ditch.
Okay.
It's a long ditch. You can see here on the data. But as we said before, it could be related with the forestry, with the ploughing system of the 19th century.
We've got some very loud areas around here. What would they represent?
Well, these are probably the tree stumps we have to go over.
Okay.
And it's creating this kind of like air reflections because the GPR is moving. So the movement of the GPR on the surface creates these artifacts created because the GPR needs to be touching the ground constantly. Okay,
so that's just the challenging conditions. So if we, I mean, obviously we were hoping we might see larger stones or buried stones in the ground. If they were there, what sort of things might we expect to see in those data?
If they were there, well, we will see like clear reflections on the profiles, which they are not as evident. Okay. Hopefully the excavations will reveal a bit more for us, but thank you so much for giving it a go. It's not a problem, and hopefully you prove me wrong.
Fingers crossed.
So, the initial assessment of the survey results don't appear to have identified any buried archaeological features near our main stone or within Naomi's area of interest. But hey, as the old saying goes, don't speculate, excavate.
Got first find, Lawrence. Got an orienteering. What would you call it? A stamp.
Oh, nice.
It's got a D on it.
D for
For
Derek.
Derek.
That's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, can I keep that?
Yeah.
Oh. Still works. Happy with that.
Naomi, not seen you all day. What have you been up to?
Well, I'm in this trench, which is the rootiest thing on site, it feels like.
It does look a little bit horrible, I must say.
It is a bit of a hot mess at the minute, but it won't stay like that.
You always get the lucky places, don't you? Yeah.
It's because it's an even numbered trench. You know, I don't like even numbers. However, there is hope on the horizon because we're starting to come down onto a number of stones.
Oh yeah.
Got one there, got this big one coming up here.
Is there another one you're standing
There's
on?
another one that I'm standing on. There's a couple further back that are coming up. And as I've just stood up and looked over to Lawrence and Derek's trench, it seems like they've got similar sort of stones. So as to what that means, I'm not sure at this stage. But I'm hoping that they are real and that they're not going to wobble and move on. We don't know that yet, but tomorrow will tell us that.
Just lots of stones.
Roots and stones. Once I get
Yeah.
past the roots, it will be clearer. But again, we've got this same really dark black soil. I think you've got similar in your trench.
I've got something similar coming up now.
It's going to be interesting to see if anything comes out of it. So yeah, all to play for tomorrow.
Derek, it's the end of the first day. It's been really productive. We've got lots done and we've got this beautiful standing stone in front of us, and the trench that we've put in front of it is just starting to reveal its secrets. So we've got through the top of the layer from the forestry, that lovely brown layer, a few stumps, and we come down to this beautiful humic heathland soil that would have been here prior to the forest creation. And I think, because we know heathland soils are thin, so I think we're starting to find the interface between the natural geology, weathered tops, it's going to be sandy, it's going to be gritty, but we might just be starting to get hints of that down there with that stone. But I know this end of the trench is looking a lot more interesting.
I think so. I think a story's starting to emerge. To be honest, in time team fashion, I'll probably prove myself wrong tomorrow. But we've got this cluster of stones around the base of this standing stone. And it's important to remember that these stones aren't just kind of lifted up and plopped into a socket. They have to be put up somehow. They have to be erected somehow. And what we know about these standing stones is they tend to cut a diagonal trench which they push the stone into and then leverage it up. And to fill that void, they would have probably had to throw in a bunch of packing stones. So I wonder that as we dig down here tomorrow, we may find a diagonal cut coming along here, and these stones are kind of the backfill of that, where the stone was leveraged up to its standing position.
Nice, and we're starting to see slightly lighter soils in between those stones. That would make sense because it's all going to be a jumble of stuff that goes in. So the plan tomorrow then, it's a bit too big, this trench at the moment.
Yeah.
So I think if we maybe halve it or bring it in just down to this stone by my feet and then focus on this area here.
Yeah, and that should answer the questions we've got. If we start to see that cut, if we start to see a change in the soil, we'll start to much better understand what's going on here.
That's great. One thing that does worry me is that the theory is with a standing stone, you've got 2/3 above ground, 1/3 below ground. So I'm a bit concerned we're not going to get to the basal layers to get a date.
To be honest, if we resolve that quickly, we could always make the trench even smaller.
Yes, okay, yeah, that's good. But hopefully we'll start to see a cut as well around this other side. But an exciting day ahead tomorrow.
Fingers crossed.
As the sun sets on our first day at Farley Moor, the team head back to the campsite, grab some pizzas and beers, light a fire and reflect on a hard day's work.
I spent the evening tucked up in the warmth of my van, messing around with GIS and thinking about the site. And what struck me, the landscape is hugely dynamic. like the topography, the changes in topography, the hills, the steep slopes. And I can't help but think that if our standing stone is Bronze Age, it's part of that landscape story. It's mirroring something in the landscape. But our standing stone's up here. And did you mention there's another one nearby?
Yeah, it's further down the watercourse. So if you follow the river down and it feeds into the Derwent.
So it's almost like the standing stones could be punctuating a route down through the hill. Wow, it would be really nice to think about how that relates to the landscape as a whole. But also, we were looking around today and there are huge numbers of stones, many of which are 2-3 metres in size. And I can't help but think, if you're going to be in a landscape where there are loads of stones, why would you put just one up? So it could be a ring of stones, or there could be avenues, there could be various features around this stone. So what I want to do tomorrow is map in all of the stones we can find and see if we can see any patterns, any relationships between them. And this is where it gets fun, because we see them in the morning, they've got a nice big shadow, it's quite dramatic, but it would change throughout the day. And what I'd quite like to do, map them in and then re-erect them and see how they relate to each other, how they relate to the shape of the landscape. And we've done step one of that already, which is do a 3D record of our standing stone. But I want to take as many records of stones as possible and see how it relates to that wider kind of dynamic topographic landscape that exists within.
That sounds amazing, but that's making an assumption that the other stones that we're looking at are actually standing stones. They're not just erratics, or they've not been pulled out by later quarries. So I guess with regards to particularly Hilde's stone, we need, with the excavations tomorrow, for Hilde to start finding evidence of packing stones and that this was actually once stood upright.
Exactly. If we can demonstrate that just one other stone was standing, we can start to infer that maybe more were, maybe there's a bigger complex, which would be amazing if it is.
Oh, sounds good. I'll bring on tomorrow.
It has been a great first day, and our initial work is starting to give us some hints as to what we might be looking at and what else we should be looking for. Here's hoping the next 2 days deliver the goods.
Amazing.
Well, it's another sunny start, which is always welcome. It's not too windy. Everyone's hit the ground running. Derek's gone off to look for possible stones, megaliths, that might be part of a larger site. It's a really interesting concept. Naomi's got a massive mat of roots that is causing her a lot of problems back there. But I've been looking at this particular feature. We shrunk the trench a touch. It's looking like the heathland soils are only a couple of inches thick. So you can really see this is the black humic stuff over here from the heathland soils, and you can sort of see the top of it over here where we finished yesterday. It's only the difference of a couple of inches, and we're down into this lighter brown, almost mottled material. Just started to get through that and possibly starting to see a bit of a cut for the packing that's going to be holding the stone up. So good start so far.
Exciting times. Morning, Naomi.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Okay, I thought miraculously overnight that this might have sorted itself out, but guess what? It hasn't. So what I'm doing, I'm just trying to get rid of more roots because the mattock is just getting stuck under everything and making a bit of a mess. I'm just going to take it by hand this way. And so you can already see quite nicely some of these stones that are coming up, and there seem to be quite a few. And I'm quite encouraged because looking over at Lawrence's trench, he's getting more stones as well, so it'd be really cool. I don't know if it's going to match up or it's going to be something different or what really. So yeah, it's quite exciting, apart from the roots, which are doing my head in. But yeah, I'm looking forward to exposing these stones a bit more.
Morning, Ben. We know there's a few stones near the main one, and I've been mapping them in with my GPS this morning, but there the whole area around the potential standing stone has been cleared, so I thought I'd go for a wander around and see if I can see any other potential megaliths, which is quite fun.
RTK initialized.
I had a warm head but cold ears this morning, so this. There's some big stones over here which could well be the top of that one knocked off, and they're pretty monstrous. But again, it's stones appearing in clusters, almost like megalithic kists.
So we've started digging our slot today next to the stone, and we're getting something similar to what Lawrence is getting by the main stone. We're coming onto this kind of sandy, mottly soil that's underneath all the really dark stuff, and there's a lot of stones coming up next to the large one, so there could be packing stones. So we're just going down to that level in the whole slot, and then we'll see where to go from there.
And I see you've got a helper with you.
Yes, I've got my helper Ash today. I'm just making him dig basically, it's really useful.
If you'd like to see more episodes like this, you can make it happen.
Our new target is to reach 15,000 worldwide supporters on Patreon by the end of 2025. This will enable us to continue expanding the Time Team world. Enjoy front row seats for the greatest show on Earth and under it.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Ooh,
Yes.
ooh. Okay, talk to me.
We've got this lovely iron-rich soil coming up. It's quite
Ooh.
solid.
Okay.
So I'm currently following that down because it seems to be underneath these other layers.
Okey-dokes.
But if it suddenly starts diving down, then we might have a socket situation going on potentially,
Okay.
because there's not much in it other than iron panning. And I think these other layers come down onto it and they kind of peel off to reveal this lovely red stuff.
Oh, okay.
So it's looking a bit of a mess at the moment, but I'm just getting it all down, see whether there's any features cut into this or not.
Because tomorrow I think is going to be soil day.
Soil day.
Soil day. Any finds?
No finds,
No
really.
finds. I just was
I've got
wondering what
I've
this
got a
little-
little pile of stones, which are not particularly interesting as artefacts, I think, other than I'm not sure they're local. But I don't know anything about the local
okay. I
local
was gonna ask
stone
you if
because
I
it looks a
can-
bit chert-like. Please have a.
I was going to ask if I could nab this one just because it's heart-shaped and I'm obsessed. I think it's a heart-shaped stone collection.
But it might just be
Oh.
river related. But we've had quite a few of these that look very different from the sandstone.
Sort of icky chert type.
Icky chert, I
Icky
think
chert.
is the right description. Yes.
After a hard morning's work in Hilde's trench, we're starting to uncover some clues. We found chertstone, which has a history of trade and use in prehistory, and we're also beginning to see signs of what might be packing stones, hinting that this stone was once upstanding. For now, it's time for the team to have some lunch.
This is looking rather lovely today.
Oh, thank you very much. I thought I'd make an effort, make a change. Yeah, there's stuff going on.
Yeah, that corner stands out to me straight away. Something going on there.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So we've got this mottled brown sort of interface between the sort of heathland soils and the
Yeah,
normal.
I've got that in my trench.
Okay, so that's almost subsurface geology. But there's this black curve, I don't know if you can see that coming around there, which I'm not sure if it's tree roots or if it's a feature, but within it we've got all these compact stones in this corner of the trench.
Yeah.
Could be a stone socket.
Yeah, I mean, to me that looks packed in, as in someone's put those there. So that's really interesting and so close to the standing stone as well.
I think if it was natural, we'd probably expect to see more of it around, but the fact that it's in this little enclave over here might suggest it's a thing. So I'm going to clean up, take some photographs, and then make a bit of a plan of action.
Sounds like a good plan.
Nice one.
While the rest of the team get their hands dirty, I carry on my exploration of the surrounding area to see if there's any evidence to support our larger megalithic landscape theory.
I've come across this one in the woods that our friend George showed me yesterday, and it seems to be in a semi-standing position. It's a tricky one to GPS with this tree cover, but I'm going to take a snap because it's certainly big enough to be a smaller standing stone at least. It's really hard to see, but around these stones it looks like there's a mound going off into the undergrowth, so let's have a route round to up a bit higher. Very thick vegetation, so LiDAR wouldn't have much hope over it. It carries on there. So it may well be that this is a clearance from the original foresting, but these are monstrous stones. Oh, last finger. Yes. If I fall off of this and don't return, tell my wife I love her.
Meanwhile, Hilde has been making discoveries of her own.
I think we may have got a socket for this stone, which is very exciting. Because I was chasing back what I think is the natural soil, which is the orange iron-rich stuff. And then I worked back, but it dives down, so I think a feature's been cut into it. And there's this grey soil, which is very similar apparently to the stuff in Lawrence's Trench. We have had quite a few cherts from this grey fill, which is nothing like any of the sandstone in the rest of the trench. So yeah, I'm just getting everything down to the same level, and then I think we have to dig a hole in it and see what it is. I was, 50-50 on whether it was standing up this way, tall stone, or Lawrence's theory, which is that it was standing up that way, kind of wide, low stone. But I think Derek's theory is proving to be a bit stronger at the moment.
So Lawrence, the idea that this was once a standing stone is looking pretty strong right now. And my theory that it originally stood tall is holding up well.
Yeah, there's still plenty of time for me to be proven right. But as you say, the idea that our stone was once part of a larger stone circle is looking more likely.
As the day comes to an end, I head back from my survey, drawn in by some intriguing noises.
What are all these yippies and woohoos I've been hearing over here, Lawrence?
Hello, mate. We've got some archaeology, some proper archaeology.
I can see it from here.
I'm so happy, so happy. So do you remember yesterday we had the light brown soil on sort of around here? We thought that might be the interface between the natural and the...
and I predicted there'd be a cut here, right?
Well, yeah. Well, you predicted there was a cut here. No, that's like changing 25 degrees. That was just, the light brown soil was actually a compact, sort of almost a trampled layer. You can imagine when this was a heathland, maybe livestock walking around the stone having a rub, or just people visiting. Mm-hmm. Got that off, and we've got the most beautiful cut for the stone. Now, unfortunately, it's not as big as you'd anticipated, but it is there, and it's very visible, and we've got something to attack now to try and get some dating and some composition.
And if we want to get under the stone to date it, how are we going to do it within that cut?
I think we're going to have to box section it out. So we'll take out more than we need, but we'll see it in section, and then hopefully we'll get so far below it that we can get a date or some OSL dates from the bottom of that as well.
But when I left you yesterday, you were going to cut the trench in half and give yourself less work, but I see...
I did start the day by doing that, but can you see this pile of stones just here?
Yes, yeah.
That popped up typically halfway through my my section, and it was too interesting to leave, and actually it forms this perfect little arc of compact stones. And
that's a feature.
I'd hazard a guess this could be a stone socket. And there's only one way to find out. We've got to excavate it. We've got to, and it's perfectly in sections, so we can get a half section. But Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah,
You've got lots
yeah.
of little stones in a perfect semicircle. Presumably there'd be a continuation of that circle underneath the bulk. And you could have had another stone, or maybe a stone or a post or something else placed there, held in with all those stones.
I mean, those stones would be very close though, wouldn't they?
Well, yeah, but you've got, if you look at the base of this stone, you've got all this these small compact stones on the outside holding it in place.
I mean, in terms of if there was another standing stone there,
Yeah,
why
or
are they
if
so
it's
close?
stone, unless it's a post for a post hole, something
Okay,
like that, some sort of
okay.
ceremonial structure. But there's only one way to find out, and we probably need to half section that. So either get yourself or Hilde, if she's nearly finished on her feature, over here and doing that while we put a little box in there. I'm so happy.
Nerd.
So happy.
With only one day left after today and so many interesting things starting to appear, it's time to put a shift in and really get to the bottom of what's going on in our standing stone trench.
Well, that escalated quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, very, very much so. Obviously, we cleared this up. We were getting ready to put a little box section in here. We thought we'd got another stone socket there. But as we just cleared back a bit more and more stones started to appear. We've got what looks like a cobbled surface.
I was going to say that semicircle disappeared fast, didn't it?
Yeah, very much so. It's really interesting, and it feels it's been made by hand. This is human made. We've got natural geology, the sort of orangey sandy stones coming down there, and this is laying on top of it. So it's hard to imagine a process where these stones, these cobbles, would have been laid in any other process than a deliberate deposition.
Yeah, if you saw this in any other place, you'd think cobbled surface. But I mean, it's very much associated with this standing stone, isn't it? Is there anything else it could be?
There is actually. So we've been reading up on the types of stone circles we get in the region, and we've been looking at this stone as an individual standing stone. But if this was a larger monument, what you get in some places in the region are these banked stone circles. If it's not a deliberate surface, this could be the remnants of a bank around a larger stone circle. And we've got Hilde's large stone just behind us with what's appearing to be a stone socket. So I wonder if we're actually unravelling evidence or revealing evidence of this larger monument.
It will be quite interesting actually to put my survey data alongside this, because while I was out and about, it felt like things were more planned than random. So
Okay.
I'm quite keen to get that data out of the GPS, look at it in the GIS and see how this spread of stones relates to this standing stone and the other potential standing stones we've got in the area.
Oh, that's going to be a really important bit of work. I think we'll look at that tonight, shall we, and come back with a fresh brain tomorrow and work out what we've done, because we've all worked blooming hard today.
It'll be really interesting to see if this shows up in the GPR, because they probably weren't looking for a stone spread in the data, but it may give us an extent of it and that may help us understand what it is. But in truth, I hate to bring us back to our original question. We need a date for this stone, and frankly, we're running out of time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So we're going to have to hit the ground running tomorrow. We'll put a slot in here. Hopefully that will give us a section through this surface as well, so we can see its composition. Has it been laid? Has it been created? But more importantly, we need to get down and hopefully find some dating evidence for what brought us here.
Well, it's getting late now. I think we're going to have to come back to it tomorrow. So should we go to the campsite, light a fire and have a nice beer?
Have a beer, yeah.
Not bad, thank you. How are you?
Good. Last day. Are you excited?
Yeah, it's not too cold, is it?
It's quite nice.
Bit of overcast, me a bit of sunburn. Hey, buddy. Day 3. Ready? Raring? Excited? Yeah. Bang it. Fucking order. Here we got your parking ticket?
My alarm did not go off.
It's our final day here at Farley Moor, and after a slow start, the team are back on site, and in traditional time team style, we're greeted by the rain.
Hello Ben, you alright?
Thank you. Day 3, how are we feeling?
I'm alright, I'm a bit nervous today, not least because you're about to walk backwards into a puddle, but there's still a lot to do. We haven't got long today because we've got to pack up and backfill. But we still haven't answered our one key question. We need to leave this site with a date one way or another. But we got a bit waylaid yesterday by that spread of stones, which is exciting. And if it is a Bronze Age site, it's even more exciting. So it's all the more reason to try and get that dating sample today, which ultimately means we've got a lot of digging to do. You right, mate?
Yeah.
What you can't see is Ben just fell over. Yeah, so yeah, lots to do, but I think we can start to focus on that question now. Hilde's trench should solve itself pretty quickly, I think. There's either going to be a socket or not. I'd love there to be one, not least because I predicted it. Naomi's trench, I think she's done. It's given us a sense of the spreads and concentrations of stones we have. So we can focus our resources on trench 1, get that date, get backfilled, and get home. All right, mate.
Hello, buddy, you right?
Yeah, ready for a hard day's digging?
I am. I'm doing a hard day's paperwork, or a hard morning's paperwork.
I'm going to stop you there, because what you just said was really boring. What about getting a date?
Right, so, is that a proposition?
Yeah.
What we're going to do, we're going to put a slot in this end of the trench.
Yep, not too big I hope, but big enough.
Big enough, 1/2 metre.
Yep.
That will allow us to get in and around the socket of the stone, get some backfill from that for Naomi to do some environmental analysis on. And then we're also going to then get to see this stone surface in section, which is great.
Very good.
And then hopefully at the bottom there'll be a lovely lump of charcoal, but if not, we'll do some OSL recording and get that back to a lab.
Right. I mean, you've still got, what, 1/2 metre to go?
Yeah, I reckon.
Get
Yeah.
on with it.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'll try and do my paperwork then.
Fair enough, fair enough. I'll leave you to it.
Important thing though, last night we were talking about this surface.
Yes.
And we were hypothesising about, is it a bank or is it a deliberate surface or something like that?
Yeah, because I've never seen anything like this next to a standing stone.
No, so a few things we looked at last night. So first of all, we went back and looked at the radar. And we can throw out the idea that it's this sweeping bank around the monument, because what the radar shows is a spread, effectively, this carrying on to about here. It goes the other side of the stone and then comes out to around about here.
Okay, so very deliberate
platform, and we don't really see any other comparable bits. Granted, we only looked in this area, but there's no other comparable deposit. So I think first of all, we can comfortably say this is not natural.
Okay, good.
Not that I think we thought that, but it's good to be able to rule that out. So it's some sort of platform, so arguably a ceremonial platform or something like that. So that's great. So we know it's a thing, we know there's a platform. And I contacted Colin Richards from the University of Highlands and Islands, who is the preeminent expert. He's just written a book on all the stone circles in the Great British Isles.
Did he get this one in?
Well, no, because I'm about to ruin his book. But I sent him a picture of this, and he said, that looks beautiful, that looks really interesting, and I know of a few stone circles that have these sort of platforms like this associated with individual stones. So he's going to go away and look them up for us and get back. But it's all coming together. So again, whether it's a standing stone on its own right, whether we've got a stone circle, we don't know yet. But what we do know, and this is brand new, is that linked to this stone, and hopefully we'll get a date, there is this incredible, deliberately constructed platform, whether that's for ceremonies, whether that's for offerings, whether that's for rituals, we don't know. Hopefully we'll get a few hints in the archaeology, but that's really cool.
Get on with it then.
There we have it. Our standing stone is starting to reveal its secrets. But we don't know for sure if it's just a single stone or part of a larger stone circle.
Morning.
Day number 3, how are you feeling?
Good, yes. I don't even know, Ben. What a question. Rain is not always bad. It can kind of wash things nicely, I suppose. maybe that's me being a bit too positive. But yeah, day 3, I'm trying to find out whether there's a stone socket here. I'm still 50-50 about it. If there was one, it would have been very small and shallow. But then on the other hand, the stone has fallen over, so maybe it was quite shallow. So I'm just gonna keep following the orange down to see whether there's a feature here or not. I'm just loosening this big stone here because I think the theory about which way the stone may have been standing up has changed. So I think it was actually up this way because right next to the stone the soil kind of dives down. So I want to see what's underneath the stone and then see if we can see a cut in the section. So I've just got to lift this bad boy out. But I'm not doing that. I'm getting someone else to do that. Yeah, I think this is the natural orange stuff coming through again. But then here, right next to the stone, is this grey fill, which has got all that chert in it, the stone that isn't anything like the sandstone that's in here. I think the pit that the stone may have been standing in runs along here. So it's the natural, and then this is the greyish fill with all the chert in. So I think Lawrence's theory is actually looking more likely now. I believe Derek for a while, but this is looking pretty promising. I bet this is going to dive right down and reveal a cut or a feature that the stone was standing in. So yeah, I think a kind of wide, low standing stone. So Derek was wrong.
So negative. What you mean is Lawrence was right?
Yeah, but Derek was wrong. I never want to actually admit that Lawrence is right. That would be way too nice.
Ha! I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. And while Hilde starts to make sense of her stone, a clearer picture is also starting to unfold in our main trench.
We've got a story now. This is a wet place. We're in a bowl on the top of a ridge, and even today the water that's in the ground makes it really tricky for the foresters. So we can safely say that this is always going to be an area of significance. But what we see is at some point people start to bring in these stones, this cobbled surface to shore up the ground surface to allow them to get access to this wet but significant location. And this area becomes so significant that after decades of bringing in more and more stone, replenishing this platform, they decide to immortalise it, make it a permanent beacon in the landscape by installing this beautiful standing stone. We can tell that the stone comes after the platform because it cuts through our 20 centimetre cobbled layer, and it's got this great big supporting stone holding it in place just there. So we know the stone comes later, but it's almost so certainly going to be associated with the platform and making this beacon this permanent memorial for the significance of this site in this landscape. Then with regards to the rest of our section, we can start to see the rest of the narrative and the story of this site. We can see heathland soils building up in this black layer here as the site starts to fall out of use and the platform starts to be covered up. Then we have this lighter brown layer which was quite compact, perhaps a trampled surface from livestock or people visiting the site at a much later phase. And then up here we've got probably where the forestry starts to take place. The trees have been planted, it's still a little bit heathy, and then we get our roots along the top there. So really nice chronology. The whole composition and the feel of the site makes me feel like it's got to be Bronze Age.
Naomi, this is looking lovely, if not a little bit wet. How's your trench going?
Well, that's a good description actually, Derek. Yeah, it's gone really well. So obviously we started out with, we could see these big stones here. And as we've gone down and not too far, because the roots in this trench were just ridiculous compared to everywhere else. But we have got more sort of cobbly stones coming up. But really, in terms of its relationship to over there, I think it's something slightly different.
I mean, it fits really nicely actually with what I've been seeing out in the landscape, because there are clusters of really big stones kind of grouped together. And I can't help but think that if this was a heavily used ritual landscape with this standing stone behind us, the folks up here, the community up here, wouldn't have just kind of left stones just casually lying around. They'd have piled them up. They'd have shaped the landscape to tell a bit of a story, or to shape the activities that were going up on here. And seeing this kind of cluster being exposed, it feels almost like they're embellishing natural depositions of these stones by piling them up. And this is a really, really nice example of that. And having it so close to Lawrence's stone is really useful to kind of build on that story. So it's great.
I was just thinking that the bigger stone that's underneath this one, because I was looking at this flat edge here, do you think at all that it may have been stood up? I mean, it's really, really close to this one, so...
I mean, it could well have been, and again, it almost feels like a waste of a stony landscape to not prop some of these stones up.
Yeah.
And I think Hilde's trench will be really important to help us understand that story. But given all of the roots over here, I don't think we're going to learn it necessarily here.
Yeah.
Plus, now we've got to basal fills in Lawrence's trench under the stone. We kind of need to prioritise some environmental work, I think. So do you think you can get some buckets out and have a look?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
So I think we've probably learned all we can learn from this trench. So what do you think? Record it, backfill?
Record, backfill. I will take a sample of this here, even though this layer is probably a continuation over there, but I'll take it as
It'd be nice to compare the two, wouldn't
a
it?
comparison, a comparative measure. So yeah, I'll do that.
Cool, I'll GPS the stones in and then we can get it backfilled.
All right, perfect.
Based on Derek's surveys and Naomi's work, we feel it would have been likely that there would have been many more Stone Age megalithic features such as cairns and kiss found throughout this area during the time that our stone was erected. But were these the reason for the stone being erected in the first place?
We got to the point where we wanted to take the basal layer of soil from underneath the stone with the hope that we might get some charcoal from that. But what became apparent as soon as we moved the last two packing stones was that in fact it's floating, and it's floating above a natural water spring. So there's a big puddle in here, and I got very little soil for the sample, annoyingly. But if I do this, I can get my hand all the way in and touch the other side of the stone. So that in itself is fascinating. There is a cut. The stone doesn't sit all the way within it, and it's sitting above this water source, this easily accessible water source.
This discovery might highlight why this location was identified as being significant during the prehistoric period and why our stone was erected in the first place. Now that we're starting to piece together the full story of our site, Derek takes a moment to bring everything together that we've learned and imagine what it might have looked like in its prime.
Shouldn't you be out digging?
Derek, it's miserable out there.
Yep.
I notice you've not been out helping the backfilling. In a lovely dry camper van. What are you up to?
So I've been putting together all of our survey data and trying to understand how our site fits into the landscape. And if we look at the kind of zoomed out LiDAR here, we get a sense of this kind of flat plateau that we're on where all the tree plantations have been, but also the stream or the river that goes down to the Derwent that you mentioned. And our site nestles perfectly at the top of it. But if I zoom in ever so slightly, you can see all of the stones that I've been mapping. We've got our main standing stone here, and then there are hints of a ring going around it. But what I think is more interesting is out in the wider area, there's another crescent of really large stones, all been kind of trampled by the forestry activities when they were planting, and a line of big stones that kind of heads down into the valley with our circle at the centre of the complex. Yeah.
Okay. There's an element of GIS dot to dot, because often the stone circles here aren't perfectly circular, they're slightly oval in shape.
It's much more of an oval. On its longest axis it's about 25 metres,
Okay.
on its shortest axis it's about 22, 23. And that got me thinking about what it would be like to experience that landscape. So I've popped it all into Unreal to try and actually recreate that walk. So you can see I've put our stone in there. I've got Hilde's as well. It's flat at the minute, but shall I take the liberty of
Yeah, so I don't think it would have been as tall as the main stone that we're looking at. I think it's a sideways stood stone.
Okay, well let's make that stand up at least. Let's go to the sort of the opening of the valley, and we'll start our procession along that line of stones. So we wander along, and we've got this lovely kind of view shed of stones where we can follow them along.
They're like markers up the valley, aren't they?
And you can already see the crescent kind of flanking your journey in. And then as you get to our ring of stones,
Big stone monument.
you've just got these outliers watching you from a distance.
Making sure you don't go past the focus almost.
It flanks the hilltop, and what struck me, without the trees, it's really flat and quite open and almost desolate up there. You don't get a sense of the topographic drop-offs that you have all the way around you. Without any standing stones, I think it's lacking character.
Yeah. What we found with our main stone then, that there seems to be a natural spring coming up from underneath it.
It's so tempting to imagine some prehistoric ancestors walking up to a spring head, a place of natural value, natural bounty, and then marking it with monumentality, isn't it?
Now, this is great, and I am very proud of you, but we've got to finish the work, and I can't let you stay here while we go and backfill the trenches.
Should we go out in the rain?
Can we give us a hand? Hilde, you dug a swimming pool. This is looking lovely.
I mean, I was hoping that the water would drain away a bit better with the sand, but apparently not. But it's okay now because we're finished.
What are we looking at?
It is a bit of a weird one. So I was looking for a socket on either this side or this side, which seemed to be the two most kind of likely sides. But we haven't really got a conclusive answer. There seems to be a possible cut or a kind of sloping feature around the whole stone. So whether it's burrowing or rooting, or there is an actual cut and the stone was placed in it, don't really know, but they're all possibilities. It could have toppled over and kind of covered most of the sockets, I suppose.
Okay.
Or maybe it was deliberately pushed over and put into a hole. They're all, they're all possibilities.
All the sockets here or behind you?
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's of course another possibility is we've just dug in the wrong place, but let's try not to.
No, that's not the case. That's good. On the other stone, we've got a cobbled surface, a platform. It seems like you've just got orange geology. Is there any hints of anything else going
No,
on?
although we do have a bit of a line of stones coming up there. That could be the edge of something.
Something going off that way.
Yeah,
okay.
And we have removed a few other ones, but there's no kind of clear surface here, sadly.
It's looking really nice. I feel comfortable saying this is more likely to have been a standing stone than not.
I think
obviously.
so too.
And did you get any other hints in the fills of that cut?
Yeah, so in the possible fill of that, a really grey fill with lots of chert stones, a few of them burnt as well, so very different from the surrounding sandstone. So I do think it's some sort of man-made kind of thing.
That's fantastic. I mean, we'll get all the information back and give it to Derek and to his 3D model, but I think we can call this an archaeological win.
I think so too.
So the jury is still out. But from what we did find in Hilde's trench, it's looking more and more likely that this stone was once standing. And if it was, then perhaps it confirms that our lone standing stone was once part of a group, maybe even a stone circle. A feature that focused on the natural springs that occur in this location at the start of a significant watercourse. The route to the stone circle seems to have been waymarked by standing stones, placing it in a prehistoric ritual landscape alongside other megalithic infrastructure. As the dig draws to an end, Naomi takes the opportunity to use some scientific techniques that can still be done in the field, even if you're on an expedition.
You can take the flotation tank away from the girl, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't do flotation. So this is the sample that I took from my trench, still with the usual glamorous gloves. Okay, so if we look in the bottom, so there's not a lot of stones in the soils around here. So in terms of the heavy residue that you get at the end, there's not going to be much to go through, you know, in terms of looking for finds or whatnot. Just a tiny bit. Okay. So yeah, no obvious contenders at the minute. There are some tiny black things which don't look like charcoal. Oh, hello, what's this? I think we do have some teeny tiny bits of charcoal coming up. They're leaving little smears. As always, you know, this is why you need to dry everything out thoroughly and then you can see it properly. So this layer is probably equivalent to one of the heathland horizons. There was a band of sort of probably heathland clearance, which would have happened before the forest was planted, and you could see that really well in Lawrence's section. The rest of the soil will come back with me now to HQ, and I will actually put it through the tank because it's all set up and it's ready to go.
Well, that's the end of our time here at Farley Moor, and it's time to start backfilling the trenches and reflect on what we've discovered.
Well, there we have it. We've had 3 days at Farley Moor with sun, wind and rain, but I think we've found some really interesting stuff, haven't we, Derek?
The trench itself has been magnificent, but for me the story of this place is the landscape, and there are so many potential standing stones. It's tantalising to think of it as a huge kind of monumental environment where communities would come, gather around a spring head and just share stories and interact with each other.
That's lovely, because we've been looking at so many different scales. We've targeted the main stone, we found its socket, we found the spring, this beautiful platform, but we also possibly found a new stone.
Whether it was ever standing or not, the jury's still out, but
There's hints.
I think it probably was, but
More likely standing than not. Can we go with that? Yeah.
let's go with that.
So then that creates this brand new monument, doesn't it, in this megalithic landscape that you're talking about, Derek, in terms of a stone circle. So rather than being an individual stone here, we are looking at a number of stones placed around here that form an oval and part of this big Bronze Age activity, which is amazing. Naomi, I know you've had a hard few days with tree roots. I love trees, but when it comes to digging around the roots, it's not so fun. Your trench revealed some really interesting piles of stones, which Derek's sort of been identifying around and about in the larger landscape, but also you've got some environmental samples.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're all bagged up, we're all good to go now, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, especially seeing what comes out from this trench, of course. And I'm hopeful, I am hopeful that I'm hoping there's going to be charcoal in there, because that would be great if we can get a date. We need a date, basically, don't we?
We do.
So no pressure.
No pressure.
No pressure, but it's all on you, Naomi.
But this has been fantastic. I'm so happy, and it's just a perfect example of what a small, discreet team of experts can do with a specific question. And I think we've all done really well. So well done, everyone, and thank you so much for your hard work.
Should we go and backfill it?
Yeah.
True to form, Naomi rose to the challenge. After carefully processing the soil samples and drying them out, she meticulously sifted through the tiny organic remains, hoping to find charcoal that we could date. And she didn't disappoint. From the soils taken around the packing materials of our standing stone, Naomi uncovered just enough burnt material to send off to the carbon dating labs at Oxford University. Then came the wait, what felt like a lifetime. But finally, the results came in. The backfill around our standing stone dated to 2000 BCE, the early Bronze Age. We are absolutely thrilled. And even more exciting, this means that our platform that we've uncovered must date from the same period, or perhaps even earlier. It's the perfect ending to what's been an extraordinary expedition for the team.
Join Time Team on Patreon to access exclusive 3D models, masterclasses, and behind-the-scenes insights.